The civil war on the left is raging, and Chris Matthews is officially out. Now, the best I can do in terms of definitive statements is that Chris Matthews has retired. I'm doing air quotes for those that are listening. I think the dude got fired. And I think the dude got fired mostly because he dared challenge Bernie Sanders. If you go on Reddit, for instance, you'll find that in their political humor subreddit and in politics, which dominate the front page, everything is pro-Sanders. And it's really weird, but I guess it makes sense. There's a lot of young people that just want to fit in, so they'll repeat whatever they hear. But Chris Matthews said some really dumb things about Bernie Sanders after Bernie won in Nevada, likening it to the invasion of France in 1940. And that was stupid, but that's why he got fired. Now, I'll be honest. The reason they're saying he's out is because he harassed a woman a year or 2 years ago because he said something like, quote, "Why haven't I fallen in love with you yet?" And she got really angry and she wrote about it. But she didn't name him until after the Bernie Sanders thing. I'll tell you what I think is going on. The insurgent far-left progressives, I think many of them don't actually care for Bernie. I got to be completely honest. I think they like what he represents, socialism entering mainstream politics. So they will prop that up no matter what, even though Bernie is kind of weak. But when Bernie got challenged, all of a sudden now harassment claims resurface. Sorry, man. They were trying to fire this guy for after the Bernie thing, even going as so far as to claim that he was condescending to Elizabeth Warren. But you know what, Chris Matthews? You deserve it. You do. See, a lot of people that used to be in that camp, right, on the left or whatever you want to call it, saw the insurgency coming from the woke identitarians, the authoritarians, the communist socialists, whatever you want to call them. And I'm not saying literally everyone is. I'm saying those people are there and they're wreaking havoc. And we just kind of like said, I'm out. I'll walk away. Now, I've never actually formally said anything like that. I know a lot of people have. You have like Dave Rubin. I recently interviewed Ariel Scarcella. She said I'm leaving the left. I've never really said that because I think, my politics don't change simply because a bunch of lunatics are screeching. My politics on freedom of speech, freedom, liberty, etc. have always remained the same. And I've always been, when I was younger, I was pretty far left. And now as I got older, I'm just kind of moderately center left or so. So I'm not going to abandon my personal view on a lot of politics, though I do think I've been, better informed now that I've had an opportunity to talk with people I not talked to in the past, particularly on issues like Second Amendment and things like that. But I'll tell you what. Chris Matthews is one of these people desperately clinging on by his fingertips to the cliff as the woke far left is crushing his fingers beneath their feet. And it's probably because he had the job, but there are so many people who enable this, of which one was Chris Matthews. Because at any point, he could have come out and said, these people are going too far, they're going crazy. And instead he hangs on, he plays ball, and they'll come for Rachel Maddow too. They'll come for Chris Hayes. These are the old guard of the establishment left. The only thing that Rachel Maddow has going for her is that all she does is screech about Trump, and they don't like Trump either. But that's not going to be good enough at some point. Let's read the story, and I want to show you the timeline of the hypocrisy in the firing of Chris Matthews. But you know what? As we know, they eat their own, so be it. Chris Matthews could have said something a long time ago. New York Times reports that Chris Matthews, the veteran political anchor and voluble host of the long-running MSNBC talk show Hardball, resigned on Monday night. Let's do air quotes for that, resigned. An abrupt departure from a television perch that made him a fixture of politics and the news media over the past quarter century. Matthews, 74, had faced mounting criticism in recent days over a spate of embarrassing on-air moments, including a comparison of Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign to the invasion of France and an interview with Senator Elizabeth Warren in which the anchor was criticized for a condescending and disbelieving tone. That's right, because Warren was I think she was talking about Michael Bloomberg and the accusations against him. And Matthews taking a rational approach saying, well, how do you know for sure? Too bad. And you know what? You know what's funny? I think the reason why Matthews is probably saying I don't believe it is because he has been accused of harassment in the past for complimenting women. Man, I'll tell you what. Let me give you an example of what's wrong with why this is a reason to out Chris Matthews. The idea of equality in the workplace doesn't make sense, and it's going to get really, really bad for one simple reason. A man can compliment a man with no problem. A man can't compliment a woman because there will be a problem. So I'll give you a real example. I love this example, by the way. If I was in an office and a guy walked in with a brand new, tailored suit, and I went, woo, look at this guy. Look at that suit. Damn, brother. Well, how much did that thing cost? You're looking sharp. Nobody would care. If I walked up to a guy and I patted him on the shoulder, or I was shaking his hand and I went in for an elbow grab, these are all common things you see in business. Some of you might think it's weird and creepy, sure, fine, whatever, but they're common social dynamic, like grabbing someone's shoulder or forearm during a handshake is a business technique. So imagine if you did it to a woman. She walks in with a new tailored suit. You went, "Ooh, damn, girl, looking good. Where'd you get that suit? That thing's expensive." They'd be like, "Oh, how dare you? You can't compliment a woman that way." So perhaps the real reality is that you also can't compliment dudes in the exact same way. Now, what happens if you're shaking a woman's hand and you wait for an arm grab? No dice. What if you pat her on the back? Whoa, you better not. You see, there are different expectations for how men and women should behave towards each other. And because of this, and I'm not trying to excuse Chris Matthews' behavior because I don't know. You can see these dynamics struggle in the workplace. Chris Matthews may have complimented many dudes too, saying like, "Man, look at this guy's suit. He's looking sharp, looking good, man. You been going to the gym, Bob? You lose some weight? I'm liking what you do with your hair." You better not compliment a woman that way. On Saturday, the journalist Laura Bassett published an essay accusing Matthews of making multiple inappropriate comments about her appearance, reviving long-standing allegations about the anchor's sexist behavior. By Monday, his position at the news network he helped build had become untenable. Well, I'll tell you what, I hope they give you a golden parachute, because you should have negotiated something like that if you were helping make the network. Accompanied by his family, Matthews walked onto the hardball set inside NBC's Washington bureau shortly before 7 p.m. to deliver a brief farewell. His longtime crew members, who had been told of his plans roughly an hour earlier, looked on stunned. "I'm retiring," he told viewers in a solemn and brief monologue as his broadcast began at 7. "This is the last hardball on MSNBC. Well, I look forward to the woke cultists who take his position." His sudden sign-off took many colleagues by surprise. Wait, what? Katie Tur writes on Twitter. Katie Tur, the freaky conspiracy theorist. But it followed days of discussions with Phil Griffin, the president of MSNBC, and one of the earlier executive producers of Hardball. You know, it'd be funny. Could you imagine this kind of news coverage if, say, like Owen Schroyer quit InfoWars in disgrace because he was accused of complimenting a woman? Like, it's never going to happen, and nobody would care anyway. The reason I bring it up is MSNBC is a kooky conspiracy channel. Like, I'm not even exaggerating. Like, at this point, the fact that people aren't calling them out is mind-blowing to me. They literally had a guy on MSNBC saying that Trump may be an asset of the Russians since the 80s. Like, that's insane. But you know what's even crazier is that the mainstream media entertained the most freakish and absurd conspiracy theory. Like, dude, just think about how insane this is. And I can't believe we've crossed this threshold. If I walked up to you and said, "Barack Obama is working for Russia," you'd be like, "Okay, all right, buddy, padded room is that way." And we literally got to the point where MSNBC hosts screeching on TV that Trump was an asset of the Russians, holding up a sign that says the end is nigh, and that Russia was going to shut off electricity to Fargo in the winter and everyone's going to freeze. That's literally what they do. It's shockingly psychotic. That's why it's really funny to me when people are like, they still latch onto this old, but Fox News. I'm like, have you watched Fox News lately? They did a Bernie Sanders town hall. Trump's ragging on them because they're hiring moderates and Democrats like Donna Brazile. I'm not saying they're perfect, but come on, you're going to watch MSNBC? You've lost the plot. So you know what? I'll say this. Good riddance. I hope the rest of them get fired. I look forward to, Big Red or some other crazy feminist screeching on the TV about the patriarchy. That would be awesome. That would be at least entertaining. So here's what they say. His sudden sign-off took many by surprise, but it followed days of discussions with Phil Griffin, the president of MSNBC and one of the early executive producers of Hardball. Griffin, who was close with Matthews, traveled to Washington over the weekend to discuss his future in person, according to 3 people who requested anonymity to describe sensitive conversations. On the air on Monday, Matthews made clear the timing of his exit was not entirely his choosing. Here's what I think happened. I think they were yelling at him. He had already apologized to Bernie Sanders. Check this out. I think I have it. Look at this. Chris Matthews apologizes to Bernie Sanders for remarks on Nevada win. An on-air comparison to Nazis angered Sanders aides who privately complained to executives at MSNBC. Stupid thing to say, Matthews, I got to admit. But he did apologize. I think this triggered the woke authoritarians who immediately pulled out every stop and said, "Bum, bum, bum. Chris Matthews has harassed me in 2016. Oh, and they did nothing about it back then, huh? Apparently they paid a settlement in like 1999 or whatever. So this guy's been doing this stuff for a long time and nobody cared up until he questioned Bernie Sanders. But here's what I think happened. I think when they accused him of being condescending to Warren, that was a lie. It was just a manipulation technique because for some reason these big networks are stupid and bend over backwards to a few woke Twitterati. But I think he gets called in. They say, hey, you can't, we got to figure this out. He's like, sure. And I think they wanted him to, apologize or bend the knee or do something. And Matthews finally said, no, I'm quitting. And so his resignation was actually more of a mutual explosion, if for lack of a better term. So on Monday, he said it wasn't his choosing. Quote, obviously, it isn't for a lack of interest in politics. Compliments on a woman's appearance that some men, including me, might have once incorrectly thought were okay are never okay. Not then, and certainly not today. Yeah, no, sorry, buddy. That's just not true. You're just a whiny loser who works for the Whiny Loser Network who bends the knee to whiny losers. So here's what happens. And I'm not here to say his behavior is perfect. Certainly you can say it's questionable. But let's draw some boundaries for a second. Bassett claimed that while she was getting her makeup applied, Matthews looked her over and asked, why haven't I fallen in love with you yet? So is that it actually, is he calling her ugly? Like, is he implying that he hasn't fallen in love with her because she's not good looking? I don't know. Bassett writes that the remark caused her to nervously laugh. Matthews, meanwhile, continued to comment, telling the makeup artist to keep putting makeup on Bassett because he'd fall in love with her. Oh, grow up. Seriously? That's it? That's what he said? I couldn't believe it. The columnist also recalled how another instance in which Matthews stepped between her and a mirror and asked of her attire, you going out tonight? After she replied that she didn't know. Matthews once again spoke to the makeup artist and made the following request. Make sure you wipe this off her face after the show. We don't want her up so some guy at the bar can look at her like this. Okay, that one gets, I guess, kind of close. But I'll tell you what. I might fall in love with you. Are you going out tonight? Are you serious? You're bent out of shape over that? Dude, I have been called so much worse by people in the workplace. Like, I don't get it. Thin-skinned people who are complaining and whiny and want the authority to step in and give them their toy. I imagine that a lot of these people who complain about this stuff grew up with like a brother and a sister, and every problem was solved by their parents. Like they'd be fighting over the last bowl of Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and they'd complain to the parents, and the parents would come in and like bop one of the kids and then pour the cereal for the other kid. So they grew up thinking, if I ever, in any way, feel slighted, I'll make sure to destroy you. Certainly they got some kind of mental problems where they need to be in charge and in control of everything at all times. You know what I think it is for a lot of these people on the far left? They have no real self-esteem, so they justify their existence by hurting other people. Like, when you have confidence in yourself, you don't care. I'll give you an example, right? So my buddy Adam co-hosts, we do the podcast every night, Timcast IRL. If you haven't seen it, check it out, youtube.com/Timcast IRL. And people in the comments call him Soy Jesus because he's got long hair and he's vegan. And he loves it. He laughs about it. He's all excited. People in the comments started calling him Soy Jesus and he gets all excited. He's like, yeah. And he thinks it's funny. I can only imagine if you started calling people soy boys or whatever, they freak out and get really angry. So they call him Soy Bro and he laughs about it. You know why? Because he doesn't care what you call him. He's like, you can call me whatever. I'm the exact same way. I was like, you can call me Susan if it makes you happy. I don't care. I know what I'm doing. I know what I need to do. And I don't care what words you use. So there's a big contrast between people like this who are going to be like, someone once came in and complimented my appearance. Oh, I'm so sorry that Chris Matthews did this to you. What an awful existence. You know what, man? If he came in and started licking his lips and talking about her body parts, I'd be like, yo, bro, you got a problem? But if someone comes up to you and they're like, woo, you are looking good. You're going out tonight? Even if it was a guy, I'd be like, man, why you dressed so sharp, buddy? You going to go out tonight or what? Make sure you take that off. The ladies will be all over you. Oh no. Heaven forbid I talk about the reality of sexual attraction in adulthood at a bar. So look, I think Chris Matthews should keep the workplace more professional for sure. But is this really why he's getting fired? Yep. This is it. He literally says in the article, comments about a woman's appearance are never okay. Are never okay? Hold on. Compliments on a woman's appearance that some men, including me, might have once incorrectly thought were okay are never okay, he said. Not then and certainly not today. I'm sorry. That's just pure psychotic behavior. You can compliment people's looks, period. If you get mad, I don't care. There is a line. There is decency. But look how far the line is being pushed by these lunatics. You just lost Chris Matthews, like one of your biggest cheerleaders, because you're all insane. You want to win so bad. They don't actually care about any of this stuff. They're just trying to burn it down so they can feel good about themselves because they don't know what or who they are. So many people, I think mostly millennials, have no purpose, have no drive, are just confused and angry all the time. So they get satisfaction by destroying others. It's like the dark side. It's evil. And they're a small faction, but guess what? There's no spines left on the left. So there's no spines left on the left. Look, when you get people who leave the left, it actually bums me out because someone's got to tell these people they're lunatics. But you know what? What are you going to do about it? If the Democrats are going to let these people take over, if the left is going to become this, well, then you know what? They deserve each other. And now we're seeing across the board. Look, I did a video about this. In small towns, Ross River, Pennsylvania, township council people switch the Republican Party. A state senator quits the Democratic Party, starts caucusing for Republicans. Jeff Van Drew quits the Democratic Party, joins the Republicans. We see it all the time. Now, of course, there are some Republicans quitting for sure. But there's a reason why people are leaving the left. It's because, listen, you might think Trump is, a potty mouth. I certainly think he's got a bad attitude, but I'll tell you what. If Trump is the line for the right, and he can say things like only Rosie O'Donnell, calling her a fat pig, basically, that means that I'm allowed to say something simple like, hey, that's a pretty sharp outfit you got. That's a great dress. You're looking good tonight. And not have to worry about getting my life destroyed. If Donald Trump is the line and that line is far away, we can feel comfortable in our speech. Who wants to live walking on eggshells like a rabbit, hiding under a tree, shaking that at any moment a hawk's going to swoop down and rip your head off? Or you can be the hawk. You can be hiding behind the hawk, knowing that you can say whatever you want because that guy's way worse than you. And people crave it. Freedom. They don't want to be scared. They don't want to be stressed out. So who's going to want to be a part of this cult? Well, I'll tell you what, Chris Matthews is out and they're going to replace him with a more cult-friendly personality. And that's where we're headed. They're slowly going to start shifting in that direction. But you know what's also the problem too? Look, the whole machine is shifting. Partly because a lot of people on the left have been pushed to the right. So I think Trump might form a massive coalition of former liberals, moderates, and conservatives, but it does mean the Republicans will shift left as well. Here's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that we maintain a balance, that when it finally comes time to wipe out the far left and their party collapses, they never win an election, in 10 years or whatever, the Republicans keep winning. And then people who are on the right now, who are still moderate, start forming a more moderate left-wing party. I'm not saying that the Democrats should always run moderates or centrist Democrats, whatever they want to call them. You can have a moderately progressive candidate. And the reason I say moderately progressive is because these people are lunatics. More importantly, you need to have liberty-minded people. All right, so I was supposed to do this, but I started ranting, so forgive me. But check this out. In 2018, Mike Cernovich tweeted, Hardball Chris harassed a woman at NBC, paid at a settlement. No journalist or guest has asked him to explain this perverted behavior. What else are they covering up? Remember Weinstein. We then saw that Chris Matthews apologized. But anyway, this was the one tweet I was meaning to show you, to show that this is something that's actually been talked about in the past. And the reason why I'm showing you this from Cernovich 2018, to ask the question, why didn't they ever say anything about Matthews' behavior before? Why now? It's because the insurgent left, the socialist authoritarians, are now taking over. And now that they have the power and they know how to exploit the system, they'll do it. Let me give you a warning. If you happen to be someone who works in a leftist institution, a left-wing institution, MSNBC, if you don't quit now and start securing your future and making your plans, you will be out. You will be without work. You might be a producer at MSNBC. You might agree with Chris Matthews or have no problem with him giving women compliments to certain degrees. I understand. Well, guess what? The purge is coming. It's been coming. They purge as many as they can. They say, get out. You're not left wing. Fine. Leave. Because if you don't, and you don't plan for what happens when you get fired, you'll be out. You'll have no job and you'll be desperate. And you know what? You'll deserve it. So this is your chance. They eat their own like nobody's business. Chris Matthews, MSNBC hardball, out. He got destroyed for daring to question the orthodoxy. Who do you think they're coming for next? They'll come for you. I hope you relish in it. Because even if you are one of these woke ideologues, they'll come for you too. They go after each other no matter what. They're piranhas. They wait for blood. They'll go after their own. They don't care. It's just pure lunacy and chaotic destruction. There's no future aligned with these lunatics. Only destruction. And I think they'll come for Chris Hayes. I think they'll come for Maddow as well. Look at J.K. Rowling. The line keeps moving. They want blood. So when J.K. Rowling makes a tepid tweet, they try to destroy her. When Chris Matthews, well, he went kind of off the top over Bernie Sanders, but oh, don't you dare challenge the priest of their ideology. They'll come for you next. I'll leave it there. Stick around. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel, and I will see you all then.